The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Now on the line, the offensive coordinator for the two-time Super Bowl champion New York Football Giants, Kevin Gilbride. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so our first question for you is the progress of Eli Manning, his first 3 years, I believe a record of 20-19, and the fourth year, of course, that big Super Bowl run. A lot of people did not have you guys in the Super Bowl that year against the Patriots, 9-7 in the regular season, and then just turn on the postseason. Eli was spectacular, one of the best postseasons we've seen. And basically, was there kind of a light bulb or light switch that you saw from Eli where he just put everything together for that month and was able to bring the Giants their first Super Bowl championship since Super Bowl 25?
You know, that's a great question, and it's one that I get asked a lot, or did get asked a lot, that, you know, at the conclusion of that year. And my response is, even though it wasn't obvious or easily discerned, there really was a gradual, fairly steady improvement that was taking place through the years. And, you know, it's like a lot of things that you can't do calculus before you've done basic algebra, and he was going through all those different scenarios and situations that arise that an NFL quarterback's confronted with, and, you know, either dealing with it or not dealing with it real successful, but learning from it and growing with it, and so that the next time one of those challenges surfaced, he was able to handle it a little bit more skillfully. I just think everything around him, as much as himself, kind of blossomed at the right time. And our defense was playing well. We had a wide receiver placed for Burris at that time that was playing exceptionally well. And we had Steve Smith, who was a rookie, who wound up a year or two later becoming the first Pro Bowl receiver that the Giants had had since 1960, returning from an injury. He'd been hurt in the second game of his rookie year and then didn't come back until that point. All of a sudden, we had those two along with Amani Toomer, the running game. Everything kind of came together at the same time, which allowed him to showcase his development and his growth. So, yeah, he definitely was getting better. He definitely played exceptionally well at that time. But more than a sudden emergence, it really was a kind of a continuous, I know that's a boring answer, but it really was kind of a continuous improvement that was taking place through the years.
Great. You could call it a boring answer, but at the same time, you could also call it a very specific and detailed answer. You're on now with Raphael, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your history. Everyone, you're well known now for being the Giants offensive coordinator throughout the 2 Super Bowls. And I got to tell you, Coach, that I'm a diehard Patriots fan in Israel, so you took out my heart. But I'm happy you guys did, if anyone did it, because I like your team and I like Eli Manning. But I just had to put that out there. But I wanted to ask you about your time with the Houston Oilers. A lot of people don't realize that you were there as a quarterbacks coach and as an offensive coordinator. And I wanted to specifically ask you about the 92-93 season when you were hospitalized with a very strange form of kidney cancer, and then quarterback Warren Moon and along with a wide receivers coach stepped up as offensive coordinator. What was that like for you, being in the hospital, knowing that you couldn't contribute to your team? And I just was hoping you could tell our listeners a little bit more about that year, because I'm sure it was a very difficult year for you as a coach. I mean, you've been a coach since 1974, and that's something that no one really goes through. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, it was one of those. It's somewhat of an interesting story. My family has a genetic history of something called polycystic kidneys, and I knew I didn't have it, or at least I thought I didn't have it. And I knew 3 or 4. Actually, 3. I thought 4 of my brothers and sisters had it. My dad died when he was 45 from it. I had watched my grandmother die, and aunt die, and uncle died, etc. So it's in my family. But really what happened was I decided I needed life insurance and went for a battery of tests, and then wound up getting tested after our Thursday Thanksgiving Day win over Detroit Lions. I went in for the test on Friday because we weren't playing a game till the following Monday, and sure enough, I didn't have polycystic kidneys. What I had, unfortunately, though, was renal cell carcinoma. In other words, I had a big tumor, and was about the size, a little bit smaller than a football, and it was one of those deals where if you got while it was encapsulated, you were going to be in good shape. If you didn't, then you were going to be in trouble because it didn't respond very well to chemo or to radiation. So I told them then that I'd coach the next week against the Chicago Bears on Monday night, and then I'd go in and get it taken care of, and that's what I did. And of course, Jack Pardee was the head football coach then. He asked me to stay a few more days to get the preparation for the next game, which I did. And then I went in and missed that game against the Green Bay Packers and the Cleveland Browns, and then came back to the last regular season game, and that was against the Buffalo Bills, who we beat fairly handily, which qualified us for the playoffs again. And we went up to Buffalo again, and that was that famous, or depending upon one's perspective, comeback victory for Buffalo, where we got beat 41-38 in the comeback in the National Football League. So the people's inside, and I'm not sure which was worse to cover the surge, what was taking place. Hello?
Oh, okay.
Hey, Coach,
sorry,
yeah.
we seem to have lost you.
We got you, though.
I think you're back with us. Great, though. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about what it was like working with Warren Moon, because you've now worked with a guy who probably will go down legendary, Eli Manning, but you have worked with another legendary quarterback, Warren Moon. So what was it like working with the Hall of Famer Moon?
Well, he's a terrific quarterback and a terrific person. I really, really was very fortunate to start my career coaching with him, and you know, we had a great run. We were either number 1 or 2 in the league every year in offense. We were number 1 in passing offense every year. We qualified for the playoffs 7 straight years. It was terrific, and you know, he kind of began a tradition now, I think, which is relatively commonplace in the NFL. After that first year in 1989, where he qualified for the for the Pro Bowl, as a reward to a recognition to me, he brought my wife and I to Hawaii. So it was a great, gives you a little insight into the quality of the man and the generosity of the man. And of course, the next 5 years, we went to the Pro Bowl every year. So I got a chance to see a lot of Hawaii for 5 consecutive years. So it was tremendous. And of course, then unfortunately the powers to be at the Oilers let him go, right. And he wound up going to Minnesota, continuing his career there, and then on to Seattle. But I mean, the guy was just an incredible football player, and of course, he was a first-round Hall of Fame selection, and deservedly so.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, I think you're in the top 5 in scoring during your era there. I think that really what helped you establish, be the coach that you are now. And I wanted, this was the main question I wanted to ask you when we were prepping for the interview. Every year that you guys seem to be in the hunt for the playoffs, all the media counts you out. And I want to know in the locker room what if that's something that's talked about, or if you guys just focus on winning. I mean, you guys, when you accomplished those Super Bowls, won both of those Super Bowls, a lot of people didn't pick you. I mean, let's be honest here. And so I want to know if that's something that motivates the team. I want to know if that motivates you. I'm very, very curious to ask that, and very excited to hear your answer.
You know, that's a good question and a difficult one to answer, because I think within the locker room, certain guys respond differently to it. But it's certainly an issue that we address and speak about, and try to prepare the players to deal with. But essentially, what we talk about is, you know, not allowing outside distractions to derail us, not allowing anybody from the outside world to determine how good we are. They weren't going to score any touchdowns, the media for us. They're not going to make any tackles. They're not going to catch any passes, throw any blocks. They really are irrelevant when it comes to whether or not we win or lose a football game. So why would we listen to what they have to say in terms of defining who we are? But unfortunately, a lot of guys, are affected. So you do have to constantly, remind them of, the fact that they're the ones that were responsible for whether or not we win or don't win, and not to allow them, whether things were going well or whether things are not going well, to be overly influenced by what they have to say. But of course, New York is such a hotbed of media with all the competition and all the media outlets, whether it's newspapers, radios, or television. I mean, they're just all competing for stories. So if you're not careful, it certainly can become a nuisance and can, in some instances, be a very disruptive force. We just try with great concentration not to let that happen.
And the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, Victor Cruz. It's a great story for all sports fans. Same with Warren Moon, was not drafted in college, was a guy who kind of came out of nowhere, went to UMass, I believe, and just had a spectacular season. I know sometimes you're not allowed to comment on players, but I'd be very curious to hear, as offensive coordinator, is this stuff that you expected from Victor when he was in training camp, when you guys decided to keep him? There was a lot of rumors at the time that you might cut him. No one knew it was going to happen, but you kept him, and wow, I mean, he had one of the best seasons ever by an undrafted player in the NFL. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that, and then we'll ask you one more question.
Yeah, no, it's very definitely true that there was not everybody was in agreement with us as coaches that Victor deserved a spot on the roster, and we fought very vigorously to make sure that happened. 2 years ago, we wanted him because we saw him make a couple of big plays in the preseason, particularly against the Jets, and then we lost Steve Smith, and we had nobody that could play the slot position. So we were in a situation where we were desperately in need of someone. When we've had success with my offense, it's always been because we had a slot player that was effective on the inside. So we needed somebody. He really wasn't playing very well in the beginning, but there was nobody else. So we fought again just as hard, with just as many questions by certain people whether or not he was good enough. But we had no choice. We were able to convince the right people, and we kept him. He did not start the year particularly well. Was very poor in the Washington game. Finally had a catch in the second game against St. Louis, but then really came on in the third game against Philadelphia. Made two huge plays for us, big plays that 2 touchdown grabs, which were just phenomenal. And then it was a matter of, he established himself as a guy that could make plays. Now it was a matter of cutting down on the amount of mistakes he made. And little by little, he did that. And by the end of the year, not only was he continuing to make some great plays, but he was really making very few mistakes. So there's no question he was an essential part of our run to the Super Bowl.
And yeah, I mean, the thing that really hit me watching him is that he's such a young guy, and you're in New York, and as you said earlier in our segment, the media there is crazy. You would have thought that he would succumb to the pressure of the media saying, "Can you keep up these pace of these 100-yard games?" And he was always very cool, and that's the thing that I'd say about Tom Brady, is that he's no matter what, no matter under pressure, he's always a very cool cat, and that seems to be the same thing with Victor. And it's even more impressive that he's like that, considering he went to UMass and was undrafted. And of course, Brady was a backup at Michigan and was drafted in the 7th round. So some interesting stuff there, in my opinion. But it was really great story, great to see him succeed. And will be really great to see to follow his career and see what happens. Ari has the last question for you.
Yeah, Coach, basically, I know this is kind of a nerdy fan type of question, but the best you can explain to us, what is it like to coach in 2 Super Bowls, and not just 2 Super Bowls, but 2 of the closest Super Bowls in history, and one of them where the Patriots were trying to get to 19-0 and set a record.
Right.
How do you go about your job, make the decisions that you got to make, and call the plays that obviously worked out well with 100 million plus people watching your every move?
And if I can add on to that, sorry, Ari, the two big catches by Manningham in the second game and in the first game.
David Tyree.
Okay,
great. First of all, the Tyree catch was a terrific catch. He's wide open. The safety jumped the Steve Smith, who was who was catching a lot of passes in that game, and the corner squatted on Steve as well. So he's wide open. The problem was he was getting rushed by the defensive end, and so he was in their grasp and spinning around, and finally was able to break through and make the throw. And by the time he made it, Rodney Harrison had come from the other side of the field and contended for the ball after he caught it. So that's why it was close. Otherwise, it would be honest with you, he would have caught it and scored a touchdown a lot earlier. And then, of course, this last game, it was just a great throw. We had been talking. I had said to Eli that, you know, they were going to continue to play a lot of two deep, but they were starting to skew over to the to Akeem Nicks and Victor Cruz's side, and you might be able to throw one up the sidelines to Mario. And of course, he made a terrific throw, and it was a very good concentration by Mario. So it worked out, and we were able to take two touchdown drives late to win both Super Bowls with final drives at the in the last part of the game. In terms of calling the plays, you know what, you're so focused on what you have to do to give your team a chance. Make the plays. Like I send in plays, and then I send in alternatives as well. We call alerts, so that if something isn't the way it looks, then he's to alert to this other thing. So I've got a lot going on that I've got to concentrate on. So I can't even think about the magnitude or the enormity of the game or who's watching it. To me, at that point, the nice thing is you're so immersed in what's going on and focusing on getting the job done that you're able to kind of ignore all the people that are there and all the people that millions and millions of people that are watching on television. I think if you've ever thought about it, you wouldn't be able to function.
Right,
well
absolutely.
said, Coach.
And it's true. You have to kind of go out there, do your thing, and maybe kind of let all the emotions happen to you after the game. And Coach, we really appreciate your time. We know you're going to get a haircut, so we hope you get a great haircut. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Thank you, man.
The